we aim to provide you with a career advisor that does all of those things. The career advisor gets to know you, understands what you want from a career perspective, helps you discover roles that you may not have been aware of. We make the apply process as frictionless as possible. We advocate on your behalf to employers. Before you even apply, we will put your profile in front of employers that we think you're a great fit for and encourage them to invite you to apply to that job. We'll also keep you informed throughout the process. We will let you know, hey, this employer has looked at your resume. This employer has given you a thumbs up. We give you a sense of progress, and so that you know where you stand.
Qasim Saifee, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders and welcome to Israel. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me, Michael. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you very, very much for being here, Qasim. The Chief Operating Officer of ZipRecruiter. It's quite a special occasion because, leadership comes in different shapes and sizes, and so do entrepreneurs and different leaders in such organizations. ZipRecruiter is a pretty foundational company in today's world, with more than 1,000 people and an amazing team. Very proud to have our own R&D here in Israel. I'm really curious as to both your own journey with the incredible experiences that we just read to the audience that they just heard. I'm curious to hear about what it means to be the chief operating officer of such a company, what ZipRecruiter is all about, and how does this whole thing play into Qasim's journey, your own personal journey. So yeah. I'd love to get started, and I want you to take me back all the way to 2000. Walt Disney Company, you're a senior analyst, and I want to connect the dots, your journey to where you are and where you are now. So help me do that a little bit.
Yeah, it's a bit of a meandering journey, so bear with me as we go through it. But I started my career at the Walt Disney Company, as you noted. And I had what I would regard as a relatively unique and interesting opportunity there. So I joined the strategic planning group there, which you can think of as sort of the internal consultants and bankers for the company. And so that's sort of a traditional role, for folks. But what really excited me was I joined sort of a small team within strat planning that was really focused on building new businesses, leveraging the institutional knowledge and capital of the Walt Disney Company. So rather than sort of, initially being assigned to partner with an existing business unit and sort of guide them through their strategic planning, thinking through opportunities, that was, again, the traditional path for someone in strat planning. What I spent my time doing was really building new businesses that leveraged, again, the company's assets. And so I got to work on a couple of very, very interesting projects that were really around, a bit ahead of their time. They were really around content distribution. We think about streaming and everything today, and that's sort of secondhand. But for us back in 2000, the idea of distributing, at that time, Disney content from direct to consumers was a novel idea. And so I worked on movies.com and MovieBeam, which were, again, two initiatives, as the names suggest, that were really around sending Disney and other studio content to consumers directly. And so that was really the appeal of that opportunity, was to be an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur, frankly, to build new businesses, again, within a company that's got a tremendous amount of resources. And so did that for 3 years, which was fantastic. And then sort of, moved on from there, and happy to explore that to the extent that that's interesting as well.
I mean, you had, you transitioned to consultancy and, a leading search engine for that time, Yahoo, OpenX, Scopely, and obviously ZipRecruiter. If you're looking at, and I do want to delay on ponder on ZipRecruiter for a long time. So if you're looking at the different things that you've done and with the different positions and the different types of roles and types of organizations you've been with, how did you situate yourself in terms of your growth trajectory? What did you learn about yourself as you were going through these different stations? Sort of what your role in this ecosystem or your leadership role in this tech world? Yeah,
so I think there's a couple things that I've learned over the course of the last 15, 20 years. And as you mentioned, I spent several years at Yahoo. From there, I went to OpenX, which was one of the first programmatic ad exchanges, and then from there jumped to Scopely, and then have been at ZipRecruiter since. And I think you'll see sort of the common through line over the last 15 years has really been a focus on marketplaces. At Yahoo, I worked on business operations for their advertising businesses, which were marketplaces: the search marketplace, the display marketplace, an exchange, a company we bought, Right Media. OpenX was a marketplace. At Scopely, I sort of had an opportunity to not run a marketplace, but actually be a participant. So running publishing there, I was responsible for user acquisition, marketing, distribution, and the advertising side of the business as well. And so, I was a participant in other marketplaces to acquire users. I was a participant as a publisher selling in marketplaces. So it gave me a bit of a different vantage point. And obviously, ZipRecruiter, we are a two-sided marketplace that connect job seekers and employers today. So I am fascinated by marketplaces. Frankly, I don't think that there's another business model that creates as much value in the world as marketplaces. And so from a value creation point of view, I think it's just phenomenal. They're also complicated, intellectually interesting, fascinating, very challenging problems. And so the combination of those two things really sort of drives and has driven my journey over the last 15 years.
So you were talking about sort of the passion you have for the complexity and opportunity of marketplaces. Let's dive into that just a little bit. So obviously, some of the biggest platforms in the world that have changed the way we are interacting are marketplaces, right? Amazon, Airbnb, Facebook, ZipRecruiter, so many of these, and I just mentioned a few, eBay, of course. There's so much potential. Why? What is sort of the if you had to distill why it's so interesting, what really is it? What is it about this multiplayer negotiation system that makes it such a unique and a big opportunity?
Yeah, I think frankly, it goes back to the value creation component. The ability to connect buyers and sellers, whether, as you noted, whether it's through Amazon, whether it's through Uber, whether it's through a swap meet. I just think there's no other mechanism that creates as much value in the world as connecting two entities. And so that is ultimately what marketplaces do. Now, the way you do that is actually, not often as straightforward as that. So it sounds simple in theory, but there's sort of four key components that I think about when I think about any marketplace, that any marketplace has to do. So the first is they have to drive participation. What does that mean? You have to bring buyers and sellers into the marketplace. And you can do that through marketing, through sales, through BD. But frankly, you have to do that through having a great product that naturally attracts both buyers and sellers. And so that's step number one. Step number two is matching. How do you get the right buyer in front of the right seller? How do you understand preferences, opportunity costs, budgets, and how do you get those signals and incorporate those signals to put the right buyer in front of the right seller? And that is an incredibly challenging thing to do. And there's really two components to that, frankly. One is, how do we think about surfacing the right buyer to the right seller? So let's go back to eBay as an example of a marketplace. If you wanted to buy a chair on eBay as a buyer, you'd go to eBay and do a search, and you'd see a chair. Great. eBay's done the first part of matching, which is surfacing all of the potential supply and matching it to the demand. There's a second component, which is now you have to actually clear the transaction. You have to decide who's going to win the chair if they're conducting an auction. And so, there's mechanisms by which you do that as well. But ultimately, the goal is there is a reason that a marketplace exists in the world. For example, the reason ZipRecruiter exists in the world is to help people find their next great opportunity. Ultimately, we exist to drive hires. There's a reason that Uber exists in the world. It's to get people from A to B. And so matching is ultimately how you clear that transaction and how you actually complete the value you create in the world. The third thing I think about is pricing. How much are you going to charge the buyer? How much are you going to give to the seller? How much are you going to keep for running the marketplace? And I think many marketplaces, to be honest with you, spend an inordinate amount of time on pricing. And the reason I say that is because I think about value creation and value extraction. And so value creation is, again, how much value are we creating in the world? Value extraction is how much of that value that we create are we able to keep? And for me, pricing is primarily about dividing up the value we create in the world into its constituents. So it's really a zero-sum game, frankly. All it does is divide the value between the buyer, the seller, and the marketplace operator. Don't get me wrong, super important, and you got to run a business, and it's something you have to think about. But I'm far more focused on value creation than value extraction generally, and I sort of take it on faith that if we create more value, we'll figure out a way to extract our fair share of that value. So that's the third component, and then the fourth component is really feedback. How do you get feedback from participants in the marketplace that helps primarily inform future participation and matching? So can give you an example, in ZipRecruiter. So ZipRecruiter, employers, job seekers apply to jobs. Employers then engage with those job seekers. They rate them. They say, hey, this is a great candidate. This is a candidate that may not match, may not be a great fit. And they give that feedback to ZipRecruiter. We do two things with that. First, we share that feedback with the job seeker to keep them informed. That's valuable. But equally important, we leverage that feedback to improve our matching, to directly influence the future candidates that employer gets. So that feedback is really, again, a means to an end. It's a means to informing future participation in matching. You think of the same thing is true when, in situation of Uber, where you rate the buyer or rate the driver and the rider. All of those things inform future matching. And so those are the four key components that I think any marketplace has to perform: participation, matching, pricing, and feedback. And obviously underneath that, you need a platform that operates. You have customer support, you have to have uptime, you have all those things. But those are the four fundamental tenets of any marketplaces, sort of as I see it.
So if we're looking for the early days of and I'm going back to the year 2000 for strategic planning and sort of from an analyst perspective, you want to get started. You realize there's an opportunity for a marketplace. There's multiple players that are going to be benefiting from some exchange or some sort of middle ground or platform that serves them. And you mentioned a lot of the different decision-making points that you have to figure out, such as pricing, for example, or feedback. How do you get started? What is sort of your preferred way of thinking about just initially laying out a foundational strategy for how this marketplace looks? Is it through focus groups? Do you just get started and just, tinker with it, A/B test? What is sort of the holy grail of getting to the right optimization there?
Yeah, and look, I think this starts with, some very fundamental product thinking that, is certainly applicable to marketplaces, but frankly is more broadly applicable, which is you need to find where there are unmet needs of customers. And that is the heart of any business, of any product, of any offering. And, the only way you're going to do that is by talking to people, talking to potential customers, and really becoming intimate with what their unmet needs are and developing empathy. And once identified what the unmet needs of your customer base are, now you have a couple of decisions to make. One, are those unmet needs so profound that solving them will actually create a ton of value? And that's step one. Find a set of unmet needs that really, if you can solve them, are going to be valuable. Step two is identifying solutions to those unmet needs. And so that's sort of like the generic steps that I think about. And if you sort of want to apply them to ZipRecruiter, I think if you think about job seekers and what their unmet needs are, I think they're multifold. But at the core of it, I think the job search process is generally broken. If you ask job seekers, that's what they'll tell you. And to get more specific, they'll tell you, wow, I have a difficult time discovering jobs that I think could be a great fit.
Yeah.
And then once I discover a job, it's very tedious and repetitive to apply to those jobs. I have to keep entering the same information again and again and again. They'll also tell you, hey, I have nobody advocating on my behalf. I have to hope that the hiring manager sees my resume and wants to talk to me, but I have no way to advocate for myself or no one advocating for me. They'll also tell you one of the biggest complaints is, I apply to a job and then I hear nothing back.
Yeah.
It goes into the black hole problem. And I don't know whether they haven't even looked at my application. I don't know whether they think, they're still deciding whether I'm a fit or not, or they decided I'm not a fit and they just haven't told me. And so for all of those reasons, job seekers, there's a very visceral feeling amongst the job seeker population that the process is broken. That unmet need is very real. And frankly, I don't think that anybody has definitively addressed that. And so that is what we aim to do at ZipRecruiter. We aim to provide you with a career advisor that does all of those things. The career advisor gets to know you, understands what you want from a career perspective, helps you discover roles that you may not have been aware of. We make the apply process as frictionless as possible. We advocate on your behalf to employers. Before you even apply, we will put your profile in front of employers that we think you're a great fit for and encourage them to invite you to apply to that job. We'll also keep you informed throughout the process. We will let you know, hey, this employer has looked at your resume. This employer has given you a thumbs up. This employer has looked at your resume multiple times. And so we give you a sense of progress, and so that you know where you stand. And so those are sort of ideas, sort of how we think about identifying what the unmet needs are. And you go back to how we did that. We did that by talking to job seekers. And that's the only way you're actually going to get that information. And so we talk to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of job seekers and sort of try to find patterns. It's about pattern recognition. And so through that research, we identified these set of unmet needs and then embarked upon building solutions so that we believe address them.
I love that. Where is Qasim in all this, in this whole world? What is your world within this large world?
I think I have the best role in the company, to be honest with you. And I know the role of COO means lots of different things at lots of different companies. But at ZipRecruiter, at least, what it means is that I get to look after the operating teams. And so I have the good fortune of getting to work with the sales team, the marketing team, the product team, the tech team, the analytics team, to help build this vision, to help build the products that fulfill our mission, connecting people to their next great opportunity. And so for me, I think the reason I love my role so much is because I get to connect all the dots. And so, you go back to sort of, my journey. One of the things that I've come to realize is I'm, I think, most fulfilled and also most effective when I'm able to oversee and engage with multiple disciplines. So I don't like to be as specialized or as focused on a particular, area. I'm happy to do that and go deep and develop, intuition and understanding. But for me, my ability to wrap my arms around the totality of the business is what really invigorates me and gets me going. And so being able to sort of see sales and marketing and sort of connect that to what their needs are to the product and how we build what we build and then take those products to market and sort of, I think that it's a rare opportunity for someone to be able to be involved across all of those disciplines. And so that's what I get to spend my day doing. It also means that there is no sort of typical traditional day for me as the COO, because I have to move from thinking about sales to thinking about product, thinking about the tech team, to thinking about how we sort of, from a data perspective. And, for some folks that may feel like a lot of switching and, there's switching costs and that's difficult to endure. But for me, I actually, I derive energy and joy from that, because again, it allows me to make connections between what we're doing across the different functions. And so that's how I think about what my role is and what I get to do.
Incredible. Qasim, thank you so much. This was so enjoyable and awesome, and going to keep on cheering from the side and being a fan of the work that you do. So thank you very, very much. And best of luck with making a positive impact everywhere you go. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'll look forward to the next conversation.
I appreciate it.